Yo, 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 what's up, peeps? It's your man, Tron Walker here again. And I'm giving y'all an update as to what I've changed with the deck so far. So, this whole time I've been playing the deck on X-Mage, I've gotten a lot of feedback from a few people that I consistently play with on Discord or from other countries. Yes, there's sometimes a language barrier to some extent, but we all share the same common desire to enjoy Magic the Gathering. And the format that we like to choose in this case is modern. So let's see. Let's go right into this. So with the deck, I have not really changed much with the mana base and the chromatic stars, spheres. I have not messed with. I have, however, taken out one expedition map and I put it onto the sideboard. The reason for that is I have decided to play more of this guy right here, and this is Karn the Great Creator. The reason why I've decided to put more of him into the deck is because he's such a cheap card, and he also shuts off artifacts for my opponents. On top of that, the ability to go to my sideboard and get whatever card I want and then put it into my hand is exceptional, and it has been working phenomenally for me so far. So because of that, and I realized it quite earlier on, but I did not know exactly what artifacts to put on my sideboard. But now that I've gotten a sideboard that's more geared towards stuff that Karn should get, I went ahead and put more Karn the Great Creators in here. Also, by the way, if you all don't know his interaction with liquid metal coating, it is absolutely broken. Being able to destroy one of your opponent's lands every turn is broken in my opinion. Because the first turn you play Karn, if you have Tron on turn 3, you have 7 mana available. So you'll be able to play Karn, the Great Creator, then go get Liquid Metal Coating, put it into your hand, play it on your opponent's turn during their upkeep. You could just go ahead and deactivate one of their lands. And then every turn that you play afterwards, you can destroy one of their lands. Unless you decide you want to go get something else off your sideboard. So, let's see. So, Khan the Great Creator, I put more copies of him in. The Liliana of the Veil, Architect of Thought, Jace Architect of Thought, Nahiri the Harbinger, Razarek, Samut, and Tamiel Field Researcher. We're all here. I think I might have put this guy in recently. But the main reason I put this guy in is because with doubling season, he can make infinite copies of himself along with infinite 2/2 blue illusion creature tokens. So he can win the deck by himself with doubling season. The only issue is he does not give the creatures haste, and there is no way to give the creatures haste. So because that is the case, I only have one of him. But in my opinion, he might be more broken than Liliana of the Veil. Just because he can make infinite copies of himself and infinite tokens. Like if you lose the game the turn after that because your opponent has some broken mechanic or something, that is pretty surprising, but just the fact that you're able to pull off an infinite loop or an infinite controlled loop, because you know infinite things can't happen in Magic anymore because of certain rules that they came out with. But yeah, so it's a controlled loop and you can make as many as you like, and you know it's a pretty amazing thing once it goes off. Now let's go down here and check these ones out. So I still have 4 copies of Doubling Season in. I have decided to add in this Elspeth, and the reason for it is it's just an all-around good card. Being able to make 3 1/1 white creature tokens, the first turn she's out, she's able to protect herself, and your other planeswalkers along with you. And then the turn after that, she starts gaining 1 life for each creature that you control, which now she's gaining you life. And then her ultimate ability. She can destroy all non-land permanents, except for all other non-land permanents to be exact. So she stays alive along with lands and tokens, which is good in case I have doubling season out and I cast her and my opponent has a lot of things out that I don't want. I will just go ahead and wipe the board, that way we can start all over again. And since I am playing Tron as the mana base for this deck, it's extremely easy for me to ramp and go into anything that I want after that. So yeah, she has been an exceptional card. Then of course, I have discovered Golos Tireless Pilgrim. This card, even though it's a very, very new card, in my opinion, at least in Modern, it's a very new card. How I'm playing it in this deck, for some reason, it just makes it work. And it makes it do amazing things because I've casted Golos on turn 3 before, and I went ahead and got a Cascading Cataracts, which, if you guys don't know, you tap it, pay 5 mana, and you can make 1 mana of. Actually, you can make 5 mana of any color that you choose. But with Golos, he needs 1 mana of every color, plus 2 colorless, which is perfect because that's what Tron is. 7 mana. So you basically tap your Cascading Cataracts for Golos, and then tap 2, which is not a problem for Tron. And then you exile, what is it, the top 3 cards of your library. And you can play them this turn without paying their mana cost. So, the craziest I've seen is actually not getting Emrakul with that. It would be getting Doubling Season and Samut Detested. Because if I have Doubling Season and Samut Detested, I can go get whatever Planeswalker I want. And in a second, I'm going to show you guys a crazy combo that I came up with. Also, a friend of mine suggested I put in Sharkan, the Masterless, just because they absolutely love dragons. And one thing the deck wasn't doing right now was making Planeswalkers into dragons. But guess what? I found a way to make Planeswalkers into a dragon with this guy. So, Sharkan the Masterless. He says whenever a creature attacks me or a Planeswalker I control, they get dealt 1 damage for each dragon that I control. So, normally when Sharkan hits the battlefield, I go ahead and create 1 4/4 red dragon creature token with flying. Which is not where he shines. If I have Dublin Season, I might have 2 dragon creature tokens, which is still not impressive compared to some of these guys. But yes, so 1 dragon creature token. But now where this guy really shines is his +1 ability, which is until end of turn, each Planeswalker I have turn into a 4/4 dragon and gain flying. So, now I'm able to make my dragons into 4/4 flying creatures. Which, like I had mentioned before, with the Jace the Cunning Castaway, he can make infinite copies of himself and infinite creatures. Now if I have this guy out on the turn afterwards, and my opponent was somehow blocking my infinite damage I have on the ground, I can make my infinite Jace the Cunning Castaway into 4/4 flying dragons. And yeah, deal damage that way. Interesting thing though, while they are 4/4 dragons, they don't lose their abilities. So they change from planeswalkers to dragons, but I can still activate their loyalty ability. The reason why I mentioned that is, if I make them into dragons, Nicol Bolus, the dragon god, he cannot copy their abilities anymore because instead of them being planeswalkers, they actually turn into dragons. So Nicol Bolas would not be able to use their abilities. But that was just something interesting that I figured out because I was playing the game and I was like, wait a second, I can't use Nicol Bolas to copy any other abilities. Granted, yes, at this point in the game I already won the game because I could just use Bolas's ability to win the game. But it was just kind of surprising to me that I could not do it. But also, I'm going to show you guys a broken combo that I realized while I was playing this deck. So, Samut the Tested, and I'm going to walk you guys through the cards. We have Doubling Season out, then we go ahead and play Samut the Tested, which says that I can search my library for 2 creatures or planeswalkers and put them onto the battlefield. So I have Doubling Season out, I play Samut the Tested, I go ahead and I go find 2 planeswalkers to play. So I go ahead and get Jace the Cunning Castaway. I like calling him Jace the Cunning Castaway. I know his name is Jace Cunning Castaway, but to me it doesn't make it sound as official. But anyways, I go find this guy right here, which can make copies of himself. Make 2 copies of himself, except they're not legendary, which means I can make as many as I want. And I go ahead and I go find Nicol Bolas Dragon God. The reason why I go find the Dragon God is he can copy Jace's abilities. And because he can copy his abilities, I can make infinite copies of Nicol Bolas here. Then after I make infinite copies of Nicol Bolas, I can use Nicol Bolas to use Samut the Tested's ability, and I could go get another 2 planeswalkers. So I can literally go get all the planeswalkers out of my deck. And now if I really want to do a broken combo and use my opponent's deck against them, because who doesn't want to pull that off, I will use one of the Dragon Gods to go and get Jace, Architect of Thought, and put him onto the battlefield. And just because he is on the battlefield, that means Nicol Bolas cannot copy his ability, which says for each opponent, search their library for a non-land card and exile it. And then the player shuffles their library. And then I can cast the cards exiled from the libraries for free. So I get to search my deck for a card, and I get to search my opponent's deck for a card, and then I get to play it for free. But because I can have as many copies of Bolas Dragon God out as I want, I can cast my opponent's entire deck and use it against them. And then, if I want to get an extra turn out of that, I can go ahead and get Emrakul and cast it afterwards for free. But at the same time, something else that you can do, oops, scroll down a little too much there. Something else that you can do is, after you get Emrakul out, if you feel like you just want to get as many extra turns as you want, you can go ahead and use Nicol Bolas Dragon God to destroy target creature, and you can destroy your Emrakul. And because you destroyed your Emrakul, it goes back into your library, because it's whenever it dies or whenever it goes to the graveyard, you have to shuffle your graveyard and it back into your library, which means that you can take infinite turns at this point in time. So you can literally do whatever you want. Alright, but let's move on now. So we have one of the big boy cards in here. The reason why he's in here, turn 3 card, exiling your lands, is absolutely broken. And with a Doubling Season out, he comes in with 12 loyalty counters, which means he only has to do his +4 ability once, and then he can reset the game if I feel like it's a game that I can't win. But on top of that, another super broken mechanic with this deck, if I have Karn liberated out, and I'm exiling things all happy and hunky dory, I can start exiling my stuff if I already have everything set up. So I can exile my doubling season and my Samut, the tested. And after I exile them and restart the game, on turn 1 I have Samut the tested and doubling season out, which means that I'm able to win the game and ultimate all my planeswalkers and do whatever crazy combo I want on turn 1. Yes, I know that's a little crazy and maybe far-fetched, because by the time that's happening, I'm pretty sure I'll be able to win the game anyways. But, if you're playing against an opponent who you're just trying to hold off and then you want to say you've won a game on turn 1, this is the way to do it. Alright, so I added Nicol Bolus Planeswalker. The reason why I added him is, without doubling season out, when this Planeswalker hits the battlefield, he's just straight up destroying lands, destroying all non-creature permanents, regardless of whatever they are. So, because he's destroying permanents, it's like, okay, well, I could just zap your lands every turn. And after using him to destroy 2 lands or whatever your opponent has that's a non-creature thing that's important to him, you can go ahead and use his -9 ability, which you can use upon entrance with doubling season. So this is potentially a turn 1 ability. You deal 7 damage to target player. That player discards 7 cards and sacrifices 7 permanents. Now think about this happening on turn 4. If this happens on turn 4, your opponent almost has no choice but to go ahead and scoop, because you've just killed everything that they had on the board and took all the cards out of their hand. So now they have to start all over again. Which means that now you've had 4 turns to set up whatever you want and get your crazy combo started. And at this point, every time they go ahead and play a land, you just zap it. But they're gonna scoop after you use his ultimate ability. I can almost guarantee that. And we still have Ugin the Spirit Dragon in here. And the reason for the Ugin the Spirit Dragon, like I mentioned before, he exiles permanents, does 3 damage to whatever target you want, and his ultimate ability, which cost 10 loyalty counters, you get to gain 7 life, draw 7 cards, and put up to 7 permanents into play. If you hit that ultimate ability without doubling season out for some odd reason, it's almost a guarantee that you're going to get doubling season and you're going to go off and win the game anyways. So it's pretty much a game ender. And even if you do this on turn 1, not turn 1, but the first turn you have him in play because you already have doubling season, the chances of you hitting another planeswalker and winning the game are very good, because me personally, I've never missed after using it. So it's just an excellent choice to play if you have doubling season out, or if you don't because you want to board wipe. And I already went over the Emrakul here. He's just getting used and abused every kind of way. If you want him, he's there. If you don't want him, he's not there. The number of times I've actually hard casted Emrakul lately has been very low though, honestly, because there's so many ways to cheat him in the game now. And after realizing the Nicol Bolas Dragon God combo with Cutting Castaway and Samut the Tested, I can just do whatever I like at this point. So, yes, to me the deck does everything. Well, let's see, now let's go over the sideboard. The reason why I have 3 of the Karn the Great Creators in here is he can go fetch any card from my sideboard during the game. It just cost me a mere 2 loyalty counters. So, I can go get a walk-in ballista. So, something I learned about walking ballista is whenever you have Tamil Field Researcher go off and you can cast any card that you want for free, you cannot use that with walking ballista because you have to pay X mana for it to come in that strong. Otherwise, it would be a super broken mechanic, because you could just go ahead and cast them for whatever number you choose and just deal damage to your opponent that way. But since you have to spend mana to actually have him come in with counters, it doesn't work. But anyways, he's a solid pick to be on the sideboard, and that's why he's here, because on many of occasions I've used kind of Great Creator to go get him, to go get Walking Ballista, and deal 1 damage to whatever I want to be dead on my opponent's field that only has 1 defense. Or a Planeswalker, or just the player in general. Then I have decided to put an expedition map on the sideboard because with my Karn the Great Creator, I can go ahead and get an expedition map and I can use it at that point in time to find Tron. Then I have a Grafdigger's Cage. This is pretty much just to stop most of those combo decks that have stuff from graveyards or libraries entering into play. This just stops creature cards from entering from those 2 fields, which excellent card. It only costs 1 mana, but it shuts down those decks completely, unless they find some kind of way to destroy this. I have a Relic of Progenitus in here, for all the dredge people out there. But it also shuts people down just as much as Grafdigger's Cage. The difference here, though, is with Relic of Progenitus, I can go ahead and exile a card from my opponent's graveyard, and if those are counter spells, that's a win for me because that's a counter spell I don't have to worry about coming back again. I have went over liquid metal coating just because you can blow people's lands up. You can also turn off their planeswalkers or turn off whatever thing they have that are generating abilities that you don't like, because you can make it into an artifact. And with Karn the Great Creator out, it says that activated abilities of artifacts your opponents control cannot be activated. I put in a Sorcery Spyglass. The reason for this is to just be able to turn off whatever your opponent's using as their main engine. So if they're using a Jace, let's see, any kind of Jace, any kind of Planeswalker, anything you don't like, you can just use this to target them. That way they cannot activate the abilities anymore. Or, let's see, you can even use a land. So if it's anything but a basic land, and it's not a mana ability, you can go ahead and target it. That way, it's not going to be something that you have to worry about again. I put a Thopter Orb in here at recommendation of a friend of mine from Discord. And he was saying that Thopter Orb shuts down a lot of decks that have enter the battlefield abilities triggering non-stop. And at his recommendation, I went ahead and put this card in here. And so far, I haven't had to use it personally, but because he so highly recommends it, I go ahead and leave it on the sideboard, so if that opportunity does arise, I won't have to worry about it because I do have this card on the sideboard. I went ahead and I added Crucible of Worlds in here. The reason for that is I'm tired of playing against Ponza and my lands just get destroyed, and then I'm like, oh well, now you destroyed 3 of my towers, let me go search these other 50 cards and potentially, or hopefully, find one. But with this card right here, I can go ahead and play lands from my graveyard. I have considered, though, adding in 1 Ghost Quarter, because if I have a Ghost Quarter or a Field of Ruin, I can turn into Ponza and I can start destroying people's lands, which is something this deck doesn't do yet, but I can destroy lands. So, it's an idea that I'm playing with right now. I put an Ensnaring Bridge to stop my opponents from attacking me. So if I just have Karn the Great Creator and my hand is looking a little slim, go ahead and get this Ensnaring Bridge and put it out. And that will stop my opponents from attacking me with creatures that have power greater than the number of cards in my hand. So ideally at this point I want the cards in my hand to be 0, which with this deck is not a problem because you can discard cards and not draw. You could discard cards, draw a card, put chromatic spheres and stars into play and not use them. So there's plenty of ways to get around to not having your opponent attack you at all. I went ahead and added a Lux Cannon. I think this card is going to end up being taken out though because I don't really use it that often. And because I don't use it that often, it doesn't seem to be that great to me because it's not a card that I run to and I say, yes, I got a Lux Cannon. Because many times when you're using it, it's too late. But with doubling season out, every time you tap it to add one counter to it, it adds 2 counters. Which means you just have to tap it for 2 turns and then you can destroy a target permanent. I left Silent Arbiter in here. The reason why is if my opponent's playing a weenie deck with a bunch of tokens or a bunch of weak creatures, I can put this guy in with Karn, and he's a 1/5, which is 5 is a pretty good defense. And my opponent can only attack one at a time. So because they can only attack one at a time, more than likely this guy can block it. And if he blocks it, I'm still alive, so I get one more turn to try to go ahead and polish off my crazy combo I got going on here. Then I added a Thran Temporeal Gateway. The reason why I added this card is, let's say I have doubling season out and I have a lot of planeswalkers in my hands. And my opponent is like, yes, please cast a spell, that way I can use Cryptic Command and counter it and bounce your doubling season back to your hand. Well, with this card right here, since my planeswalkers do count as legendary permanents, I just have to tap it and pay 4 mana, and my permanent goes straight to the battlefield. And since it goes straight to the battlefield, my opponent can't respond to it with a counter spell. At that point in time, all they could do is maybe bounce my doubling season, but hey, if you're playing against control and you're able to play permanents, you're doing good. And then I put a Golos in here. No, let me just go back to the Thran Temporal Gateway. So one more thing with this card, you can use it to play your Emrakul, since it is a legendary creature. So since your Emrakul is legendary, you can pay 4 mana to play an Emrakul. Well, not play. You pay 4 mana to put an Emrakul into the battlefield. So it doesn't gain haste, it does not get you to exit turn. But now you have a 15/15 on the battlefield that can't be targeted by spells. Or it can't be targeted by colored spells, but it can be targeted by abilities. But either ways, that's a 15/15 Emrakul on your battlefield just sitting there, helping you out, looking big and strong. And all you have to do is swing next turn and attack, and your opponent's probably gonna scoop and walk away. Then let's see. I added one Golos Tireless Pilgrim on the sideboard just because with Karn, I can go fetch this guy, and I know next turn already. It's pretty much a gamble for my opponent to let me stay alive because every turn after that I'm alive, I could potentially win the game because I don't even have to have cards in my hand anymore. I can use this guy's ability, and I am eventually gonna hit my doubling season on some other planeswalker, or I have my doubling season out, but with this guy I'm going to hit some planeswalker or something. So because the deck is doing so much, it really does not help them to not be super aggressive in trying to win the game. I have one Wormcoil engine still on the sideboard. The reason for it is it has Death Touch, it has Lifelink. When it dies, it makes me 2 blockers. One of them with Death Touch, one of them with Lifelink. So if I'm going against Burn, and all I have is Karn the Great Creator in my hand. I'll go ahead and play him. Go ahead and play Wormcoil Engine. And I can be safe knowing that my opponent's not going to attack me because they know their creature's going to die because this has Death Touch, and I'm also going to gain 6 life. Which gaining life is a huge thing against burn decks because they tend to run out of steam fairly quickly. New addition to the deck, Chromatic Ori. I added 1 copy of this card, and the reason for that is after I play it and it comes into play, or after I cast it and it comes into play, I can use mana as if it was mana of any color. So all my stuff that requires me to have any color mana, now I could use colorless mana and it's just as good. But since I'm playing so many different colors in my deck, if I don't have a Oath of Nissa out or a Cascading Cataracts, now I can have this card right here. And this card will completely set my mana completely. Another thing is when I'm trying to use Golos Tireless Pilgrim's ability, I can actually use any color mana. So yes, this lets me use mana as if it was mana of any color. On top of that, I can pay 5 mana and tap this card, and I could go draw cards equal to each color among permanents I control. So I'm potentially drawing one for, let's see, I think I have every color in this deck. I have red, blue, black, white, green, yeah, and red. So I have all the colors in this deck, which means I'm potentially drawing a couple cards every turn depending on which planeswalkers are out. So yes, peoples, that concludes all the changes I've made with the deck. I've gone over some of the crazy combos I've came up with. If you all would like to see this deck do any other crazy combos, or you would like to have me figure out a way to add any crazy combos to this deck, go ahead and leave a comment down below and we'll get on that. I know one thing that I'm missing right now is the ability to exile permanents that my opponent controls. That is because I took the fairy out of the deck, but from how I'm looking at it now, being able to destroy my opponent's permanents and as many of them as I want is just as good as exiling them, because with Teferi, it was just letting me exile permanents based on every time that I would draw a card. Which, there's a lot of draw in this deck, but it is not an instant thing that happens, and I want something that is more instant, so that is why, for example, I have gone with Bolus Planeswalker, because he can destroy non-creature permanents. And then I have plenty of other ways to kill creatures, like Bolus Dragon God kills creatures, Elspeth destroys all permanents, Karn exiles permanents. But speaking of Karn exiling permanents, I guess now I have figured out how to exile permanents with this deck. I just go ahead and make as many copies of Bolus as I want, and go fetch Karn, and then I can exile all of my opponent's permanents. So that is a combo I just thought about while I was making this video. So yeah, I think this deck does everything. But yeah, if you all think of anything that you would like to see change with the deck, go ahead and leave a comment down below and I will get on to changing it. I've also built a few other crazy decks. I'm currently trying to build a goat deck in modern, but surprisingly there are very limited cards with like a ghost theme in Magic the Gathering, which is to me is kind of crazy. But I'm gonna try to do a goat deck that has beasts in it with probably Primeval Bounty. So yeah, that should be a very fun deck once I start playing it. Once I get the parts to start working a little bit better. I think the highest I've gotten a goat token is to like 62, 63, and I got it to 60 something counters in 2 turns. And while I was doing that, I was still drawing a bunch of cards. So that's a super crazy deck that I'm about to start making videos about. I'm also working on a Garruk tribal deck, because since you guys know, I collect Planeswalkers as a hobby. And since I collect Planeswalkers as a hobby, I might be making a tribal deck for all the Planeswalkers. But as of right now, I can say I've only helped make a Sandra tribal deck and a Garruk tribal deck. But we will keep going with it and see where it goes from there. So peeps, until next time, I hope you all keep enjoying Modern. And if y'all are enjoying the videos, leave a like. Let me know you like the videos that I'm uploading. If you'd like to see me post more often, leave a comment saying that. But also, I'm gonna have my Discord information in the comments or in the video description. Probably in the video description. But with my Discord information down below, if you all would like to join my Discord server, watch me play Magic all day, because on my days off, I can guarantee you I'm playing Magic the Gathering, brewing a bunch of crazy decks with a couple friends of mine. So if you all would like to see that process happening real time, get to have a conversation, by all means add me on Discord, and I'll be more than happy to have you be a part of my community, because I know there are some people out there with some amazing ideas of decks that they want to make work, but that you guys have not you guys and gals have not had the opportunity to have somebody actually help make the deck. So yeah, people, that is it for me, and I will see you all in the next video. And on that, Tron Walker is out.